Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today is the day, my first ever tournament. I've been in this hobby for a very long time, but I've never played in a tournament, so I am really looking forward to this. I'm excited, I'm nervous, I know it's going to be a lot of fun. Just got up, currently waiting for Aceface, because that's who I'm going with, to arrive. He's picking me up. Link to Aceface's channel in the description, check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, let's have a look, see what I'm prepared with. So I have my army. I'm taking my Necron Flayed One army, so 30 Flayed Ones. I've got the Reclamation Legion and 2 Canoptic Harvests. I have a video on the list in the archive, so go and check that out. And then I have my bag, which is absolutely full to the brim of what I think I'm going to need. So I've got all the codexes, army lists, the rules pack, drink, all the tokens and templates and tape measures. Yeah, loads of stuff in there. So I'm ready, I'm prepared. And we're going to have fun, so hopefully you enjoyed the little video. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to record on this video, but we'll find out. Right, okay, so here we are on the road to my first tournament, and I am with Aceface. Hello Aceface.
Hello.
So yeah, I've got my old camera, so probably less quality than usual, but there you go. So yeah, we're on the way. We're all packed. We have our armies. Ace, you're playing ADMEC.
Yeah. I've got the war convocation, so yeah, it fits in nicely with the rule set. So we'll see how that works out.
So it's quite an unusual rule set for most tournaments, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very strange. It's almost like Highlander style. So it's kind of encouraging having one unit of everything. So it's going to encourage a lot of varied lists, but in typical Aceface style, I've tried to find a way of breaking the rules. So that's what we've gone with.
So is there any sort of one piece of advice would you give me as a first tournament player? Anything specific?
I think, I mean, we spoke about it before, but I think it is playing to the mission and playing to the strength of the army, particularly as a first tournament. And if you're not really up to speed with all the latest formations and everything else in every other army, where there's so many different varieties of options within 40k at the moment, if you try and almost overthink that, you're going to lose your way a little bit. You've almost got to think of the strengths of what you've got and play to that. But ultimately, don't be afraid or nervous about asking anybody at any time what something does. Everybody genuinely at tournaments will be more than happy to tell you exactly what things do at any time. So I suppose, if in doubt, ask the question, but ultimately play to the strengths of your own army. Right,
yeah, sounds like good advice, and exactly what I'm thinking really. I think if there is a downfall for me, it will be the lack of knowledge of maybe some of the armies that are going to be there. So I will literally just be playing my army and just having fun really, I suppose, at the end of the day. Yeah. So I very much doubt I'll actually be videoing any of the actual games, but I've definitely tried to take some pictures of the other armies that are there, and we'll report back probably on the way home or something maybe. Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, so more to come. Right, actually there is one more thing. So we're going to take bets on whether or not Aceface and I draw each other, probably in the first game.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I think if that does happen, I think Ace will definitely have the advantage, because I haven't got a clue about ADMEC whatsoever.
I don't want to play them horrible Necrons though, to be honest, and don't die. I want to play something that I can kill.
I have a funny feeling if we draw each other in the first game and I beat Ace, I'll be walking home.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. Yeah. Either that, or I might just take my channel off air.
Okay, so I'm back after the first day. Played the 3 games. I'm going to do a little rundown of each of the game. Got a bit of footage, not too much, some pictures to show you before I talk about the game. So yeah, let's do this. Okay, so this is the first game. We're basically playing Crusade with 5 objectives. I have deployed my Necrons here. lacking slightly in terrain, but there you go. And I am playing another Nick, and he has a rather nasty Space Marine army. He's got this Skyhammer formation, loads of Centurions. It's going to be a lot of fun this game, can't wait to get going. More to come. Okay, so game one, I was up against someone called Nick. So it was Nick versus Nick. And he was quite a seasoned tournament player by the looks of it. But he was a really, really nice guy, and I couldn't have asked for a better opponent for my first ever tournament game. He did have quite a nasty list, to be fair. There were quite a lot of nasty lists at the event, which slightly surprised me because of the restrictions that there are. But a lot of the players there were saying, although there are lots of restrictions, that those restrictions open up for certain builds. So there were quite a few nasty lists. But anyway, game one, excuse me. And I was up against a hodgepodge of an army. So we had the Skyhammer formation. He had a White Scars detachment, which he had some Grav Centurions in a drop pod, and he had some Assault Centurions in a drop pod as well. And then he had like an empty drop pod. He had Assault Marines and stuff from obviously the Skyhammer. So basically it was a turn 1 Alpha Strike, and not only that, he had an Imperial Guard detachment ally thing, and in there he had like units of Psychers, and he was summoning demons. So what happened? Well, I managed to get first turn. Excuse me, I've just eaten a Chinese, I was so hungry. So I managed to get first turn, just a dice roll, but first turn is what I'm after, so I can get my RP up. So I got my RP up. He came down with pretty much all of his army, and I think it actually was all of his army on turn 1. Excuse me. And then he tried to Alpha Strike me, and to be fair, if it wasn't for my reanimation protocols, he probably would have done a very good job at Alpha Striking me. As it was, I actually survived the strike quite well, and I think, to be fair, it was almost a little bit to his surprise. He did get my Tomb Blades locked in close combat straight away, with one of the Assault Marines coming in and assaulting straight away. The other Assault Marines came in, they assaulted my Flayed ones, which I infiltrated in his deployment zone on an objective. The mission was, I've explained the mission actually in the video clip. So yeah, he came in, and my Flayed ones actually managed to sort his Assault Marines out. Took a couple of turns, but I think that was a big surprise to him, to be fair. He is an ex-Necron player, but I don't think he's really used Flayed ones. Yeah, so I weathered the first turn. I basically held in there. I survived the best I could. I had to be ultra aggressive, so once he was down, I basically threw my Flayed ones, I threw my Tomb Spiders, not the Tomb Spiders, sorry, I threw the Wraiths, and I threw the Scarab Swarms at him. I basically assaulted everything. Everything was locked in close combat. It really helped me sort of tie up his shooting, and then he was generating demons left, right and centre. In total he generated, he spawned 9 units of demons. I think it was 3 units of the Flesh Hounds, and then he was spawning demonettes. And I think that factor really was what won him the game. I basically lost, but I took him all the way to turn 4. We ran out of time on the end of turn 4, and to be fair, it was pretty close. I think I had 2 objectives. I think he had 3 objectives. So it was a good win for him in terms of the points scoring system. It's 30 points for if you won by 3 victory points, it was 30 points. If you won by 2 victory points, it was 20 points. I got 1 point for losing. I didn't get Slay the Warlord, and I didn't get Line Breaker. They were worth 10 points each. So From the first game I ended with 1 point, but Nick did say that I played really well. I did make one mistake, which was trying to get first blood, and I started the assaults in the wrong place. I started the assault in my tomb blades, and I had like 2 tomb blades left. Luckily they survived. I could have actually given him first blood in error. As it was, I got first blood by taking out the drop pod with the scarabs, which is what I should have gone to that assault first. But you know, we talked about that. That was the only mistake that I made, and I was really happy with the result. I pushed him all the way to the end of the game, albeit it was only turn 4, and I was really pleased actually with the first game. So that was my opening game. Just 1 point. But bit of a confidence booster, I think, and I was happy with how my army performed. So let's see what happens in game 2. Okay, so this is table for game 2, and looks like I'm going to be playing Imperial Guard. Haven't met my opponent yet, but yeah, this game is escalation, so we're going to use the Maelstrom mission, so it could be an interesting game. See what happens. So, game 2, and this time I was up against an Imperial Guard army, pretty much an old school type army. So we had a big blob of 30 guardsmen backed up by another unit giving orders, a couple of chimeras, a couple of other tanks. I'm not sure what they were. You can see them on the extreme flank in the picture. Then you had a couple of the new smaller, like I'm calling them the jeeps, but those smaller tanks. I'm sorry, I don't know the names. I'm not familiar with Imperial Guard. So we had all those. Then he had a Vendetta in reserve, and he had a unit or a formation that made a unit basically come back to life. So when you killed them, the unit came back in deep strike. So that was that. Now, the guy that I played, Sam was his name. He basically said it was his first tournament as well, so we were in it together. And a really great guy. We had a really fun game. We were playing Maelstrom. We were playing escalation, so you start with 1 card and you get more as you go. Again, I had first turn. One mistake I did make was not determining what the terrain is on the table, because we had like this little building in the middle of the table and those 2 little hill things. I got my flayed ones on the hills after infiltrating and moving. I thought I was in cover. Apparently I wasn't. And I lost a big chunk of my flayed ones at the beginning, probably about 50% in each unit with the shooting from the Imperial Guard. So I just let that wash over me and concentrated on the mission and the cards. And as it was, I got a great start to that game. My first card was one of the Necron special cards where you have to turn up another card, and then if you do that objective you get D3 plus the 1 for the other card. So I got that, I did my D3, I got a 5, so I ended up with 4 points at the start of the game. My wraiths and my flayed ones moved up into attacking position. Turn 2, my opponent didn't get a very good card. I think he might have got 1 point, and then it was my turn 2, and that's when he put the pressure on. I got my cards out. I got some good cards again. One was kill 3 vehicles in 1 turn in the assault, which I thought I was quite capable of. That was worth D3 as well. And then I got another one where I had 2 objectives. I managed to get both of those objectives. So I took the wraiths in, the flayed ones. I took the scarabs in, and really minced those vehicles. I got the objectives, and again I rolled a 5, so I was 3 points for that. So the game ended on turn 5. We rolled a 1. Game ended. The Imperial Guard player had 1 unit left at the end, which was the regenerated ones, which died once and came on the board deep striked right at the end of the game. In terms of points, funny enough, amazingly, I actually secured every single card that I pulled up. and all the cards that I had about 4 cards where I had to roll a d3, and I rolled a 5 or a 6 for all of those. So I ended on about, I think it was like 26 points. So it was a great win. So they gave me my 30 points for a resounding victory, and also got Slay the Warlord, and I also got Line Breaker. They were worth 10 points each, and there's some secondary, there's like a list of 10 different things, like a secondary objectives during the course of the tournament. What I noticed was that in my very first game I only got 1 of those points. In my second game where I won, I got all of the points apart from 2 of the points, which were Slay the Warlord type points. So that's one is killing a warlord with your warlord in a challenge, and that type of thing. So I knew I wasn't going to get those anyway, but it's quite interesting. I think if you won a game, you got all those points. So it was a great game 2 for me, and it put me up on the tables a little bit. I ended up game 3 on table 10. So let's have a quick look at the picture and we'll talk some more. Okay, so table 10, game 3, and the third game was a special game specifically for the tournament. So it was basically 6 objectives, 3 points each, and they were using the mysterious objectives where at the end of the turn, if you roll a 1, it explodes. We didn't do it. We got to the end of the game and then we remembered. And I spoke to a couple of other people and they also forgot. So, who remembers the mysterious objectives anyway? So anyway, I was up against a Space Wolves player. He had been tabled the first game and he had tabled a Tau army the second game. So he had a nice mixed result. And he was playing a Death Star army basically. He had a Land Raider with 5 Wolven in it. I think it was a Crusader with 5 Wolven, and then he had 4 Psychers, and they were joined to a huge Thunderwolf cavalry formation HQ, like Thunderwolf like priests. There's like 8 different guys on Thunderwolves. They all seemed to be independent characters, and they all had Cyber Wolves, and it was just one massive unit on the table. So that was it, a Land Raider and this big unit. So he puts, basically what happened was he was a Space Wolves player and he played like Space Wolves. He had an army, everything had a 3+ vulnerable save and a 2+ normal save, and he basically said, I'm going towards you regardless. And he was really chilled and relaxed about the game actually, which, I have to be honest, did throw me slightly. I was all up for all these serious games and he was like, yeah, well, you could choose your corner, I don't mind. And then, he was placing the objectives. He started placing them all in my deployment zone. I decided to run with that. I knew it was coming to me. I knew I didn't have anything too fast to get away from objectives. I did consider putting one objective out of the way and then infiltrating some flayed ones onto it to take that objective, but I felt I needed all of my army there ready because he had some powerhouses coming my way. So I ran with what he wanted, what he was doing. I put all the objectives in my deployment zone. I figured if I could hold off the assault, slow him down, at least then I've got a chance to get those objectives as well. So I did infiltrate the flayed ones. I did my usual tricks. I did have turn 1, but he seized the initiative. So he seized the initiative. He brought the Land Raider forward. He opened up the hatch. The Wolven got out. They did a special run move or something. Anyway, they assaulted my flayed ones. My flayed ones went down,
but they did do quite well actually. They killed 2 Wolven. They got 2 wounds each, remember. I think that was a slight shock to him, but he did end up killing all the flayed ones. And then Thunderwolf Cavalry just basically advanced forward. So in my turn, I got the RP up. I assaulted the remaining Wolven with my Wraiths, and actually managed to take them out, which was really, really nice. I did lose some Wraiths in the process. I think I was down to about 50%, but at least I got rid of those wolves. And then basically what happened was the Space Wolves player was basically he was aggressive in his play, in his style, and in his attitude. Really, not aggressive, nasty. He was a lovely guy, really nice guy. But on the table, he was like, "I'm playing Space Wolves. I'm charging you." Like, oh, like, you know, Space Wolves player. So what happened was, I didn't really get too much time, or basically what happened was I had to fly by the seat of my pants. So I had to play on instincts, and I basically did some of my little trickery stuff that I do. If anyone's played me, they know I don't necessarily always play to the rule book. I don't always play the normal things that people would do. So I basically tried to fool him in what I was doing, trying to surprise him. So I didn't want to just do what everyone else probably would do. So I started moving away with the Wraiths and the Scarabs, putting it over into different areas. Tried to split his unit up by moving and running the flayed ones actually back over behind him. I started breaking off units to cope with that, so I was almost feeding him. I was trying to slow him down basically. I knew he'd get to me, and I had to slow him down. I succeeded in slowing him down, but ultimately he was very powerful. He had the Librarians, which some sort of formation with the lightning strikes, where he was having a lot of lightning strikes. He had like 36 strength 7 ignore cover shots at one point. They were nasty. I did manage to take 2 of those priest things out with some wraiths during the game. But ultimately what happened was we got to turn 5. The game was a draw. On turn 5 we had, I think, two objectives each, three objectives each. The game would have been a draw. We rolled the dice and we rolled a 6. So the game went on. And then after that we were equal on the objectives, but he was winning by 1 point because he had Slay the Warlord. And then so he would have won by 1 point, but the game went on, so we went to full 7 turns. I only had a Wraith left and a unit of flayed ones. I was holding 2 objectives, but where his Thunderwolf Cavalry characters were, basically they were splitting off. Like one guy, I'll take that objective, another guy, I'll take that objective, still having a big force to come in and do damage. So in the end he had 4 objectives, I had 2. We both he had Slay the Warlord, we both had Line Breaker. So he basically won more than 3 victory points, which gave him the 30 points. I just scored the 1 point. So a much closer game than the result lended to. A bit like game 1 really. So out of all the 3 games, I lost 2 and I won 1. But I certainly wasn't feeling shameful by any means. I think I put up a great fight. The first game, like I said, was against a very, very nasty list and obviously an experienced tournament player who said during the game, wow, these Necrons are tough. Who said during the game, I'm not underestimating flayed ones anymore. So you know, I knew my list was at least half decent. So really happy with the first game. The second game, of course, I won. Very happy with that. And then the third game, I put up a fantastic fight against what was really nasty Thunderwolf cavalry army with their saves everywhere and their strength 10 power weapons, which really were hurting my RP rolls. So to take him to quite a close game, and he said at the end of the game, he said you played really well, you didn't really make any mistakes, you just came up against a bad army really. So that was the first day. Really happy. Tomorrow we have two games. The first game excuse me, is Deadlock. It's where you start with 6 cards and then you dwindle them down. And then the last game is Victory Points. So I was talking to Ace Face on the way home. I said that I'd like to win one of those games if I can. He said, well, you should try and win 2. Of course, yeah, I should try and win 2. But I think if I can win one of those, I would say winning 2 out of 5 games against that environment, I would say that's a good result. But obviously, I am going to go tomorrow to play to win. We'll see what happens. Okay, so more to come.